In today's breaking news, a Politico article caught my eye that included these words in the headline about Trump, hamstringing his agenda. In fact, the article even had this concerning quote about Team Trump. They're really operating, I would say, at a severe disadvantage, said Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Barack Obama. And in just a minute, I will have the full story about what exactly is being hamstrung and that big hole that she is pointing out. And the story even has a connection to the potential outbreak of bird flu that has public health experts a little bit worried. But first, let's get up to speed on the latest news about the Trump transition into office. This report is very relevant because of the odd assortment of unqualified characters that Trump is casting to be in his cabinet and for other key positions. It is definitely contributing to the hamstring effect mentioned in the article. This recent News Nation clip leans into Trump's transition into office with a cabal of chaos by showing the threats against voting senators with regards to Pete Hegseth and surely the others to follow. And I think you'll find George Will's comments about how it might be backfiring very interesting.
You want to call it MAGA, but by Donald Trump's supporters to put pressure on the senators. Take a listen.
With all due respect to the senator from Iowa, you're not where the American people are. President Trump is. And Pete Hegseth is.
We don't get a mandate like this from the American people just to have it thwarted by a bunch of dorks that we never heard of from the U.S. Senate.
You got to put the fear in them. You got to put the fear in them. These are not your colleagues. You go up to Capitol Hill, you're in enemy territory. But we can't back off. You can't back off Pete Hegseth. You back off Pete Hegseth, they're going to smell blood. They're coming for Cash, and they're going to come for Tulsi, and they're going to come for Bobby Kennedy. They're coming for all of them.
I think that may be the first time in my life that Steve Bannon and I have oddly had the same talking points, or at least the same view of the world. But there seems to be this understanding by Team Trump that, Matt Gaetz's confirmation or life as a nominee was measured in days, and that showed weakness. Now they need to show strength.
I think you're right that that's their calculation, but I don't think the way to show strength is to attack, as some of the sound bites you just had are doing, senators as stubborn as not doing their duty, which is to stand up and salute the president. Remember, he can only lose 4 Republican senators, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and a couple others, and that's it. So I really don't think that this is wise for his supporters to make this a question of institutional falling in line. Senators really don't like to be told their duty by talk radio and talk television.
Yeah, it would not be the first time that Charlie Kirk or Steve Bannon have not done their savior, Donald Trump, any favors.
And now let's dive into the Politico article that outlines how Trump is compromising the process with pics of television personalities as nominees and the connection to bird flu. The full headline reads, How Trump's Transition Could End Up Hamstringing His Agenda. The president-elect's advisors haven't yet begun meeting with federal agencies. The Trump transition signed an agreement on November 26, paving the way for those landing teams to begin work in the agencies. But before they can do that, the transition has to submit its list of people who will serve on the teams to the Biden administration, and they just began sending over those names late this week, the White House confirmed Friday. That puts Trump's officials nearly a month behind their recent predecessors. The article also points out that Trump's health nominees include television personalities Dr. Mehmet Oz to lead the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Jeanette Nezawat to be Surgeon General, and anti-vaccine activist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. None have any history of working for the executive branch or leading an organization of this scale. Donald Trump's odd affinity for TV celebrities like Oz and his transactional relationship with someone like Kennedy, who he once ridiculed, is no surprise. But putting them in key positions within government without qualifications and up against a steep learning curve when lives will be at stake is irresponsible. That's because a slow transition now can result in a slow response in a couple of months from now, whether it's bird flu or something else. And for those of you who may be hearing about the bird flu for the first time, here's a just published story by MSNBC that does a great job of explaining the current status.
A Fresno raw milk farm was quarantined by health officials after regulators say some of its milk tested positive for bird flu from infected cows. But what makes this a story of national importance is what Mark McAfee says happened next.
Now, McAfee may play a role in national policy. He says RFK Jr., who's on track to run the FDA in the Trump administration, asked him to apply to be an advisor on raw milk policy and standards development.
Yes, the raw milk CEO, currently fighting claims about bird flu contamination, has reportedly been contacted by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be part of the FDA, which is part of the Department of Health, at a time when that same department may be facing down an increasing threat from bird flu contamination. Now, for some context here, the CDC is currently warning people across the entire country not to drink raw milk because of the risks associated with the growing bird flu outbreak. But RFK Jr. has made the deregulation of raw milk one of his passion projects, if you will, despite whatever possible pandemics may be on the horizon. And now Kennedy is reportedly reaching out to that embattled Fresno raw milk CEO for help setting national raw milk policy. And that is maybe worrisome because researchers this week are warning that bird flu could easily evolve to become a much bigger threat to humans than it is currently. Since this outbreak began in March, the CDC has identified 58 people who have been infected with bird flu. Almost all of those cases appear to have come from contact with livestock. Now, so far, experts don't think the virus can spread from human to human. But a new study published today by the Scripps Research Institute suggests that the virus may be closer than previously thought to being able to spread from human to human. Experts stress that more research is needed to know just exactly how close we are to that point. But if the bird flu does become a virus that spreads between humans, that could result in yet another public health emergency and one that we are not prepared for.